If there are any fathers listening to me right now, this is for you. You won't be young forever. You won't be strong forever. And one day, you're going to need someone's love, someone's forgiveness, someone's warmth. Raise your children in a way that makes them want to come back to you. Not out of duty, not out of guilt, but because they remember being loved. I see so many elderly parents sitting alone in silence. No calls, no letters, no visits for Christmas. If you don't want to end your life like that, think, really think, before it's too late. And now, let me tell you my story. A story about a father who raised me through fear, and about how I made it out. I'm not a therapist, and I'm no moralist either. I'm just a girl who was never loved like a person, only shaped like a project. I wasn't raised, I was built, as if I belonged to someone else. And if you want to know what that does to a child, then listen. When he beat me with a belt, he'd say, "You should be grateful. I'm making you into a real person." And I was grateful, because I didn't know it could be any other way. I was 6 years old and I already knew. If I dropped a cup or laughed too loud, he would come. First, silence. Then the creak of the couch. Then his footsteps. Then his hand ripping the belt from his jeans. And then, not the blows, the pauses between the blows, because that's when he talked. He'd say, "You need to understand. I love you. You'd end up drunk on the street if I didn't keep you in check. Other parents throw their kids away. At least I'm here." And I believed him, because my mom stayed silent. Because the neighbor once told me, "Well, you really are too sensitive." Because in fairy tales, villains hit for no reason, and he always had a reason. So somehow it felt right. It wasn't just one night. It was my entire life. I grew up believing that love meant fear, that if you love someone, you endure, that if you make a mistake, punishment isn't cruelty. It's a lesson. He called it discipline. He called it care. He said other fathers didn't even bother with their kids. But him? Oh no. He cared. And my mom? She was there. Always there. In the kitchen, behind the wall, by the window. She'd wash dishes while he yelled. She'd cook while I cried in my room, holding ice against my leg. And when I was around 12, I finally said it out loud. "I'm scared of him." My mom replied, "He just worries about you. He means well." I remember her stroking my hair and saying, "You're lucky to have a father. A lot of kids have it worse." And I truly thought, maybe I'm just ungrateful. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I don't deserve gentleness. And that maybe became the foundation of my entire adult life. I grew up in a house where emotions were weakness, where "I'm proud of you" sounded like a sentence, not encouragement, where my father yelled that I'd never amount to anything, where my mother would buy me a new dress, then say, "Just don't get full of yourself." I didn't know I could want more, that someone could hug you for no reason, that it was possible to live without the fear of making a mistake. As a teenager, I started keeping a journal, my first secret, my own little world. I wrote everything in it, my fears, my pain, my dreams. And one day he found it. He called me into the kitchen, read a line out loud. "I just want to be loved." Then looked me in the eyes and said, "What are you, some kind of princess?" Life's not about love. It's about duty. That night, he burned my journal in the kitchen sink, and I watched the paper curl and blacken, thinking maybe that's what growing up means. Learning not to ask, learning to be quiet, learning to make yourself small. I moved out when I was 18, not because he kicked me out, but because I thought I had to start over with a clean slate. I studied, worked, rented a tiny room with a window facing a brick wall. And you know what? I missed them. It's strange, but I really did. I missed his angry lectures at dinner. her silent stares, that familiar fear, because that was my world. And the new one was just too quiet. And then I met my first boyfriend. He was kind. He held my hand when I cried. He never yelled, even when I got angry. And I pushed him away. I waited for the catch. I waited for him to hit me, or insult me, or call me ungrateful. But he didn't. He just loved me. And you know what? That was scarier than my father's rage. I didn't know how to receive love. I didn't know how to live in a world where mistakes didn't come with punishment. I apologized every 10 minutes. I asked, "Are you mad at me?" Even when he was just quiet. I said sorry for my tears. And at some point, he looked at me and said, "You deserve to be loved. Just because." I broke down crying because I didn't believe him. Years passed. I'm 33 now, and only now am I starting to learn. To learn that kindness isn't weakness, that you don't have to earn a gentle word, that crying isn't something to be ashamed of, that love isn't about belts and threats. It's about presence, about choice, about warmth. I went to therapy. I learned words like emotional abuse, fear conditioning, family gaslighting. I read dozens of stories, daughters versus the golden child, scapegoat kids, parents who emotionally ignored their daughters. And suddenly, I saw it all clearly. I'm not alone. I didn't make it up. It wasn't my fault. I still remember how he behaved at my wedding, how he sat in the corner, lips tight with disapproval, how he said, "Let's see how long he puts up with you," and how he left right after the toast, without even saying goodbye. Later that night, my mother came up to me. She had that guilty smile she always wore, the one that tried to hide how helpless she'd always been. And then, quietly, she said, "You know, I lived with him my whole life. I stayed for you. I thought a complete family was what you needed. I figured, better to have a father like that than no father at all." I didn't say anything, so she went on. "Sometimes I think I was just afraid. Afraid to leave. Afraid to be alone. I hid behind you, behind routine, behind the word family. But you went where I couldn't even look. You did what I never had the strength to do. You got out. And I'm proud of you. You're stronger than I ever was." And then, as if it was all too much, she turned away, like she regretted saying so much. But before she left, she still said the one thing she somehow couldn't hold back. "You could have been a little softer. You know how hard his personality is." Yes, I know. I know his personality destroyed my childhood, that his so-called discipline left scars you couldn't always see, that his love was really just fear, a fear I carried inside me for decades. But now I know something else. I don't owe him my gratitude. I don't owe him my silence. I don't owe him forgiveness for the things that broke me. Recently, he texted me, a message on WhatsApp. No greeting, no apology, just, "You could call me once in a while. After all, I raised you." I stared at the screen and suddenly realized, I'm not afraid anymore. I don't owe him any explanations. I am not his project. I am not his product. I am a person, not a success, not his failure. Just a person. I am not that little girl with the belt marks on her skin. I am a woman who got out, who is learning to be herself, who is learning softness and kindness and love without conditions. I earned that. Not for achievements, not for grades, not for obedience, but because I paid for it. I paid in loneliness. I paid in childhood tears, in nights spent in fear, in years of doubting myself. I paid every time I stayed silent, every time I forgave, every time I pretended to be strong because being weak wasn't an option. I wasn't born happy. I fought for the right to be happy. And him? He still thinks he was right. Right about what? That he broke a child just to feel important? Who was he even trying to prove himself to? God? Himself? The neighbors? He could have built something great. Created something. Become someone. This world is huge, beautiful, full of horizons. And he chose a war with a little girl. He chose to defeat me instead of defeating his own darkness. He wasn't strict. He was weak. Not a father, a coward hiding behind a belt. A big man sat with such a small target. But you know what? He really did make me into a person. Just not the way he thought. I was like a piece of raw iron. Raw, cold, shapeless. And he threw me into the fire, again and again. He hit like a hammer. He shouted like an anvil. He thought he was forging strength. But what he didn't know was this. Iron can become a weapon, or a key. He wanted to forge someone obedient. But in the end, he forged someone free. He made me into a person who knows. No one has the right to tell you that you should be grateful for pain. And now, when he writes to me, I don't reply. Because my silence is a choice too. My choice to live. And to love myself. Without fear,